Another Wednesday is come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to 9 Panel Grid. This week, we've seen heroic history lessons, nuclear nemesis, and minotaurs leaving mazes. But we're going to kick things off this week with Absolute Martian Manhunter number 4, written by Dennis Camp with artwork by Javier Rodriguez. This continues to be a really fantastic series that really kind of pushes the medium of comic books forward. It shows exactly why this is a visual medium and why it is so strong when the comic book actually is able to showcase that with Javier's artwork. The color work here is fantastic as it really goes to show, it becomes part of the storyline itself, as every time that we see the color palette of the Martian Manhunter himself, it goes to show something, the emotive qualities of the characters. Alternatively, with the white Martian influencing the people of Earth and making them do, devious things and really get themselves into trouble, you see that through the white smoke and the mist that is kind of like all around their body and kind of coming out of their ears in this storyline. Dennis Camp is doing a fantastic job with the storyline itself here as he keeps kind of pushing forward the narrative of the detective who is kind of like the, I don't know, the host of this extraterrestrial being. It's a little bit different than the proper version of the Martian Manhunter storyline, as both of these characters exist in real time, but the influence and the kind of coercion is shown here, as you can definitely tell that the Martian Manhunter character is trying to kind of pull the detective in the right direction here and trying to make him a better person and see the world for maybe more so than what it is. Alternatively, though, that detective is really struggling in his personal life as he's detaching himself from his family, kind of diving headfirst into work as he's trying to basically, I don't know, shirk off his responsibilities as both a husband and a father. So it's a really interesting narrative that they're creating here, and with the notion of what the Martian Manhunter can do with those emotive qualities and the color showcasing, it really makes for an interesting character piece that Dennis is delivering. I'm really enjoying it. Let me know what you're thinking about this book if you're reading it in the comments down below. Next up, we have Absolute Wonder Woman number 9, written by Kelly Thompson with artwork by Hayden Sherman. This is another great example of a showcasing the character qualities that Diana has. Kelly Thompson is doing such a really great job at that. She's just like infinitely badass. I love how the character traits are pushing forward here. She's a very headstrong character, but her moral compass is always at true north, and this is another great example in this issue of that fact. She kind of sets forth on this path where she has to go into the Minotaur's maze, and they basically all know her camp of friends here, including Steve and the other people that she had helped out during the Tetracide attack. They're all telling her this maze isn't necessarily a maze. It's really designed to keep you trapped in there. It's more of a prison than anything. She's not having any of that. Of course, she's all powerful, she's super strong, and she knows that it's the right thing to do. So, what does Diana do? She dives in head first. I love how they kind of twist and invert the idea of the maze itself and maybe the maze's caretaker, where you see some interesting things take place in there. This continues to be one of the best absolute books, as well as they're really kind of putting it forward where they're making changes to the nature of how these characters interact, but not the core of their character themselves. Kelly Thompson is doing fantastic work on this, continues to be one of my absolute favorite books from the Absolute line. All right, let's talk Department of Truth number 31, written by James Tynan IV with artwork by Leticia Catanese. This was an interesting one. This is a tonal shift and change, both narratively and visually, for the book that is the Department of Truth. We're diving into a newer kind of internet driven phenomena, if you will, that is kind of being brought into reality within the pages of Department of Truth. And the narrative kind of strays really far away from the detectives that we kind of know and are the heartbeat of this storyline, as we're dealing with now an ancillary character who is kind of seeing how they're impacted by this black hat character from the internet age and how it's interacting with the real world. Artistically, This is an artist now with Leticia that I've seen previously working on Minor Arcana, and that artistic style works really well in that book. And it's not to say that it doesn't work well in this book. In fact, I think it looks really nice. However, it is so drastically different than what we've gotten previously from people like obviously Martin Simmons, who has been on the book. It's not surreal. It's not real dreamy and ethereal. It's very, what you see is what you get, which is good, just totally different. So it was an interesting issue here. I wish that this book had a little bit more focus and we can kind of just say streamlined with the characters that we've been introduced to since issue number 1 and kind of keep that narrative pushing forward. I like the small breaks we get, but I feel like those small breaks are getting to be too often, to kind of keep the train rolling, to keep my interest invested in this book. So Department of Truth number 31, good issue. I just wish that we would stay on track. We have a new sequel series kicking off, so let's go ahead and talk Lazarus the Fallen number 1, written by Greg Rucka with artwork by Michael Lark. So I hadn't had the pleasure of reading the previous series on this, but it's Greg Rucka on writing, Michael Lark. I really appreciate both of those creators. I figured it's the best time to just jump in. Let's see if I can kind of pick up the pieces and figure out where I'm going to go. And I'm happy to say that I totally was able to do so. There are bits and pieces where I'm sure that is definitely more emotionally resonant, or there's, like little clues that you would pick up on if you had read those previous series. But the series does a well enough job picking up the pace and kind of figuring, allowing you to figure out where we stand here as the story kicks off. It does have a 1-page kind of prelude to it to kind of catch you up on the everything that happens in this world and what you may have missed from the previous series. So it does a really good job on letting you kind of just pick this up as a new jumping on point and kind of go from there. Greg Rucka has always been a fantastic writer, especially when it comes to the world of espionage and spy thrillers, and this is exactly what that is. We have a character who is somewhat of an immortal, who it seems like is kind of on this mission, who maybe gets double crossed. This has big Mission Impossible vibes, especially that first Mission Impossible movie where you have Ethan Hunt on the run after he's been basically framed for the murder of his team. Big time vibes as far as that goes. As well as that, we have Michael Lark on artwork, which I think that, just like I said, Greg Rucka does really great work with the espionage type of writing. Michael Lark's artwork fits the tone of that kind of story perfectly as well. It's very action driven, but leans more realistic. It's not necessarily like photorealism, but it leads you to believe like these characters could exist in real life here. It's not like the hyperkinetic, overcharged, like manga influence type of artwork. Very clean, very precise. So I really like the approach on this. It definitely got my interest. It makes me want to go back and actually read those previous stories here. So if that's the mission for this book, well, mission accomplished. You absolutely did it. So Lazarus the Fallen number 1, it was pretty darn good. All right, let's talk Minor Arcana number 8, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Leticia Catanese. So I had talked about Leticia's artwork on Department of Truth previously. Now on Minor Arcana, I have to say that with her pitch hitting for Jeff Lemire, her style totally fits the tone that this book needs, and it's stylistically in tune with what Jeff Lemire was doing previously. I like this artwork so much that if they became the series' regular artist on this, not only would I not be mad, but I think that it may actually be an improvement for the book itself. The storyline in this issue here is actually one that is tonally different than the rest of the series, which I think is a great thing as well, because this is a real positive issue. We're seeing a lot of character growth here, specifically from our main character. We're seeing her make amends with people that she had maybe wronged in the past in her hometown. We're seeing her make connections with people that either she had connections with previously, or maybe making new connections with people that are in the town as well. So this was a really positive issue, which Jeff Lemire isn't kind of really known for. You hear Lemire and, a lot of people think sad dad energy. Not in this issue. This is a little bit different, but it was very much needed as we're seeing those connections be made. Now that those connections are being made, we know that he can pull on those heartstrings later on as those connections get torn apart. So this was a really good issue, a really timely issue for what we need in this series. And again, the artwork just totally fits for this series. So Minor Arcana, not hearing a lot of people talk about this, but I got to say, it's kind of a sleeper book for me, and I think you should be reading it. Next up, we have The New History of the DC Universe number 1, written by Mark Waid with artwork by Todd Knock. So for me, as a person who didn't have a large connection to the DC universe in my childhood when I started reading comics, I gotta say, this was kind of the perfect catch up for me. I know the basic beats of a lot of the things that have happened with DC, specifically with the Holy Trinity of characters, but there are so many ancillary things that I had no clue about. This book does a really great job at delivering all of the background information that you need from everything that's happened here throughout the DC universe and making it clean and concise and understandable how one thing leads to the next and so on and so forth. Mark Waid has been known to do this. He did something similar with Marvel, with the history of the Marvel universe as well, and I think he did a really good job there. Todd Knock on artwork also kind of brings that classic feel, but keeping it fresh and new for the artwork as well. Now, the thing to understand on this is it's not a narrative necessarily. It is very textbook like, where it's delivering just like a dialogue or a monologue, I should say, of all of the events that are happening here. There's no character back and forth here, with the exception of the very beginning of the book, where we see that Barry Allen is kind of the one who is scripting the history here, as he has been the person that has been involved with every iteration of the DC universe through all of the events that's been happening here and the multiversal things and the Speed Force and all that kind of stuff. So he's kind of like the perfect person to be shown to be writing this story. So overall, this was really good. I think it's going to do a great job for people who need a little bit more of an understanding of the DC universe, like myself. If you are a huge fan of the DC universe and you know all the minutia of it, I'm really curious what your thoughts are and if you've read this though. So let me know in the comments down below. Next up, we have News from the Fallout #1, written by Chris Condon with artwork by Jeffrey Allen Love. This was a really cool introductory issue, and I gotta say, this gives me big vibes of books like 30 Days of Night that came out from IDW back in the day. This is all about basically a nuclear fallout occurring, actually manufactured by a specific government, which is now seen to be causing the people that were caught in that fallout to take on zombie-like qualities. We don't know the nature of the full extent of what's happening here, but you can see that it was something that was manufactured. It was something that they were actually looking to do. We just don't know why the powers that be were trying to do that. The artistic quality in here, like I said, it reminded me of 30 Days of Night. Jeffrey Allen Love has a very sparse look to his artwork. It's black and white. It's almost print-like, as if you were to, like, have a rolling pin for ink and kind of go over it the way you would like screen print a t-shirt. So it's that kind of artistic quality on this, which makes it incredibly unique. It's something that you're not going to see in every single comic book that you pick up from the stands. In regard to the narrative, it is a brisk ride. This is not going to be something that you spend a lot of time with, kind of going page by page, at least when the reading aspect comes into play. The artwork you do want to pour over here, but it's a very quick read on that. And I think that's effective for what they're trying to get across here. We understand the background of the event that takes place. We get to spend a little bit of time with our main character. We get him to the point where he has been introduced to other characters and the dangers that are kind of coming their way. And then that kind of leaves us on the cliffhanger for issue #2. So as far as an issue #1, incredibly effective. I think it did everything that it needed to do to get its hooks in a new reader. And with the unique quality of the artwork, I think it's something that is going to kind of like stay in people's minds here. It's going to resonate a little bit more than maybe the traditional comic might. So News from the Fallout was a really exciting ride. All right, let's talk The Pale Knight #2, written by Peter Milligan with artwork by Val Rodriguez. I was a little bit down on issue #1, as I feel like narratively it took a lot of time to get to the point where we needed to see what the mission statement of this book was. And issue #2 feels very similar to me. And I'm really kind of bummed to say that, because I really enjoy Peter Milligan's work. He's one of my absolute favorite writers and has done some of my favorite works. This just feels a little bit bogged down. There's some editing, some trimming that can happen on this book, as we kind of come into the same pitfalls with this storyline. So we see our knight character who's made this pact with, the manifestation of death itself, to save his own son, who has been kind of riddled with the Black Plague. So he's on this mission to go, basically strike down a knight that they've eluded death one way or another. We don't necessarily know how, but now the knight is, going towards this and trying to kind of save his son by killing this other knight. We don't get to see those actions happen, though. In fact, we don't even get anywhere near to being close to that. But what we see is that this knight who has now become, he's having a crisis of faith and he's questioning his belief in God. And through that questioning of his belief in God, he starts questioning whether or not this pact he's made with death can really come to fruition. And if this was just maybe a hallucination that he's had, or if it was something that was very real. On top of that, the knight who has eluded death here, we kind of get maybe some inklings of how he's been able to do that through magic and sorcery. But again, it's just inklings and notions. Nothing is concrete yet. So this issue, that's what it was all about, really. Inklings and notions. But again, it's kind of tough because it's not giving me the hook that I need to kind of follow through with this story. I think I needed some kind of big event, something big and bold to happen in the issue that made me go, oh, okay, that's the reason I want to continue to read this. We get tiny things, we get tiny little emotions from these characters and little beats of growth. But overall, for a single issue experience, it's not quite doing it for me. All right, let's talk The Seasons number 5, written by Rick Remender with artwork by Paul Azaceta. The charm continues to show itself through and through with this book, as we spend so much time with the character of Spring that it's incredibly difficult to not be just, I don't know, just drawn in by her naivety, her charm, her playfulness, even though the stakes are getting higher and higher as each issue goes on. The sisters, the seasoned sisters now have all been kind of called into, this threat that's happening, this circus that comes to town that can basically take anyone over. And now we kind of know they're using people's own vanity against themselves as they look into the mirror and see exactly what they want to. And as soon as that happens, they know that they have these people trapped forever and ever. So the Sister of Summer, that's already occurred. That's done. Spring tries to save her, is not able to do so. Winter is very cold, obviously, due to the name, and she acts as such here, and she basically pushes Spring away, even though Spring is trying her best to do whatever she can to help the town, help her sisters, but no one really takes her seriously. It could be because she talks to the fish in her fishbowl, maybe, but also I kind of love that aspect of the storyline. The simple nature of the lettering and the word balloons when she's talking to that fish and when that fish responds to her in her head is glorious. I love it. This is such a playful, joyful book with dark stakes and, like a real kind of undertone of darkness in this book here. So it's really striking that great balance of joy and darkness. It's doing fantastic as far as that goes. So if you're looking for that kind of book, if you can kind of find that balancing act like this book I feel like is doing so well, it might be the right book for you to pick up. Next up, we have Spider-Man and Wolverine, number 2, written by Mark Guggenheim with artwork by Kari Andrews. This was the fun issue. This was the action-packed, balls to the wall, like, fun issue that was just going to, like, grab you by the shoulders here and shake you until you enjoyed yourself by seeing how action-packed this could be. This issue is all about the revelations that we see from the end of the first issue, where we find out that Logan could possibly be involved, if not the catalyst of the death of Peter Parker's parents. Peter is having none of this now, and we get to see him unleash in a way that you really rarely get to see Spider-Man unleash himself. He is a powerful character. He can do a lot of damage, but what you know about the character of Peter Parker and Spider-Man is that he'll pull his punches. He only does the damage that needs to be done. Not here. Not when you're fighting a character like Logan who has a healing factor and may be involved with the death of your parents. He does not hold back. And there is a scene in this book, if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about, where it is a jaw-dropping moment. You're gonna love it if you like big, bold craziness in your books. That's what this issue is all about. The fight between Peter Parker and Logan, and it is done stunningly. Kari Andrews' artwork is so hypercharged and dynamic. It just like demands your attention as you go from each punch and kick and page panel and page turn. It's glorious. It's something to really, really enjoy here in a world where most of the time I feel like I like the smaller stories, the more character driven stories. There's a place for fun stories in my stack of books here. And I got to say, when it comes to the fun books, this was at the top of that stack. All right, let's talk Superman number 27, written by Joshua Williamson with artwork by Sean Isaacs. So this was a really great end cap to the storyline that's been building and delivering here with the Timekeeper, the future version of Doomsday, and Lex Luthor and Mercy's interactions with Superman. I feel like this is going to be the end cap for a large portion of the storyline of Superman, which is going to allow a new jumping off point for new readers here that hopefully jump on with Joshua Williamson's run. I've personally really enjoyed it. I jumped on during the time frame when he kicked off the House of Brainiac storyline, so I wasn't there from day one, but I got in pretty early, and I have to say I'm really glad that I have. I'm not the biggest Superman fan. I've liked the Hallmark stories like All Star Superman, for instance, but it's never been a character that's resonated with me fully. And I have to say, Joshua Williamson is making me a Superman fan here in the DCU proper. And I'm so happy for it because there's a lot of great things that are happening, a lot of great character interactions that we get to see here. Not only that, but because it puts the end cap on a lot of these different story beats that have been happening here, it allows us to pivot off to something that is a bit of a cliffhanger that we see at the end of this issue here that makes me really excited. Not only does this kind of allow people to jump on for new stuff that's coming down the pipeline, but it seems like this book might be the catalyst for what is going to be happening in the DCU and Absolute Universe proper. This might be the jumping off point for kind of year two of the All In initiative. And I'm really, really excited for that. This is going to be something special. What we get in this issue is really fantastic as each piece is, again, put into play here. I was really intrigued by everything that happens with Lex Luthor and Mercy in this issue. And I think that this sets the stage for some really cool ideas to be played with here. So, Superman number 27, I was pleasantly surprised. Next up, we have Ultimate Spider Man number 18, written by Jonathan Hickman with artwork by Marco Cocchetto. So, first and foremost, I have to say something that is a little bit outside of the scope of this book, but there was a time and place where I thought that Peter Parker was really the only Spider Man, and I didn't think we needed a universe full of Spider Man. And I partially still believe that, but I have to say, characters like Miles Morales really turned that thought on its head, and I can see, oh, there's a reason for multiple Spider-Men, especially Miles Morales, because it's such a strong character. And at that time, I was like, okay, well, we can't have more than two, though. That's three would be too much. The character of Richard Parker in this, though, really has me intrigued. So much so that I think that there's room for maybe three Spider-Men. Granted, we're in two different universes here, but regardless of that, I'm really digging the character of Richard Parker and his interactions now being somewhat of a superpowered individual here with the suit that our Peter Parker in this universe had inherited. In regard to the storyline, man, this is so much of a character driven storyline. This is all about Peter and Harry getting back together, reconciling what has occurred here, what we thought had occurred in the Savage Land a couple issues back, and how they're going to move forward, plan, plot, and make sure that they keep their families safe, and how they are going to basically make their next moves now that they kind of have a little bit of a coalition with the Mysterio clan, if you will, how they're going to be kind of maneuvering that whole idea and how they're going to take a battle back to Kingpin, hopefully a little bit in a more strategic way than they originally had. Marco Cocchetto continues to do fantastic work here, albeit I feel like there's a little bit less of a kinetic dynamic quality to his artwork in this. It felt like, I don't know, something was missing, and it could just be the fact that I'm becoming numb to the greatness that is Marco because we've seen so much of his artwork both in Ultimate Spider-Man and previously in Daredevil. It looks fantastic, don't get me wrong. I feel like I've seen it a lot now, and maybe I'm just getting to the point where I know what to expect from what he brings to each and every page. Again, the character growth is here. The character qualities are here. I love the interactions between Pete and Harry, as you can definitely tell that both of them have grown as characters since the onset of this series kicking off. And I'm just excited to see where they go from here. Quieter moments in this issue, building towards something bigger. That's what this is all about right now, as we're kind of getting really close to the end of year 2 for the Ultimate Universe. And I got to say, that gets me excited. All right, let's talk We're Taking Everyone Down With Us, number 4, written by Matthew Rosenberg with artwork by Stefano Landini. I'm so pleasantly surprised at how much fun I'm having with this book. And I say fun, and it's not just a fun book. This does a great job at walking this tightrope between being a fun book, an emotionally resonant book, an action packed book. Matthew Rosenberg is like really doing a lot of things in this storyline that keep each page turn exciting and entertaining. Stefano Landini is also doing that same type of thing with the artistic quality that they're bringing, seeing that this is kind of like a almost a villainous James Bond action adventure type of storyline. The characters in play here, the robot who has taken on the persona of the father figure of our main character, Annalise, is fantastic. And I love the balancing act where he's kind of trying to keep the secret that he is the father while also protecting Annalise like a father. Annalise is such a headstrong character, too, that she jumps at every opportunity basically to take revenge on the people who murdered her father. And she is not going to let anything stand in her way, regardless of whether it is murderous villains coming her way, trains blowing up, anything that stops in her way, even the people that are there to help her. She will not let them get in her way. It's really awesome seeing kind of like the growth of that character, or the lack of growth, I should say, for this character, but also seeing all the beats that the robot takes to make sure that she is safe and to try to offer some teaching moments along the way. Stefano's artwork is fantastic. I love the way that they can kind of visually show each of these actions take place, because there's a lot of big, bold moments here, like I referenced, like a train exploding. There's a couple moments here where it's something that could be very simple, but the way that they lay it out is really stunningly done here, particularly a couple car crashes that take place here. You can tell that Landini must have been having fun with the way that they laid those out here, because it's not with the intent to show the action so much as it's to show the reaction of the characters. Really great stuff here. It's also a little bit of a family affair in this issue, as a couple characters come together that pretty surprising, kind of surprising stuff here. But again, this continues to be a really fun book to read. Every character, whether it's the smallest, like bite-sized character, like side character that you get, every single one is intriguing here, all the way from those tiny ones to the main players. Everything is intriguing, everything is exciting. This is a book you absolutely should be picking up. If you're not, maybe give it a shot. And with my runner-up book of the week, let's talk Green Arrow number 25, written by Chris Condon with artwork by Montos. I'm just so happy with the nature of this book right now, as it leans on Green Arrow's history in such a big bad way, and it really pays due to all of the things and all the character beats that make Oliver Queen such a great character, while not making it feel muddied down in the nuance of history. It still feels fresh, it still feels new, it still feels like it has the history that it's leaning on, while also respecting all the beats that have happened to get us to the point where we're at right now in present day. Montos is also doing unheralded work here. When I talk about some of the artists that I really enjoy in comic books, specifically superhero comic books, Montos is amongst the top tier. I would argue maybe top three of any kind of book here. When you're thinking about the artistic quality, I think of the same thing that Alex Maleev brought to the book of Daredevil back in the early 2000s. It's gritty, it's textured, but it's really dynamic, and it really makes kind of like the page flow in a great way. The storyline here is really kind of, again, it's leaning on things that we know Oliver Queen to do, where he's kind of been the social justice activist, and it's taking those qualities. It's not getting heavy handed with them, but it's staying true to what that character can be. This is the kickoff of the second arc, if you will, of Chris Condon's time with Green Arrow, and I think this is a fantastic time, if you haven't read that first arc, to jump in, kind of see what this is all about, see if this character is for you, and kind of see where they're going to be taking this. This is a big, also Arsenal heavy issue. Arsenal being the previous sidekick of Green Arrow, who went by the name of Speedy back in the day. And if you know classic comic books, if you know key comic book moments here, you'll also know that the character of Speedy was also one that was addicted to drugs back in the day. So they're leaning on that kind of storyline here. And again, leaning on legacy, keeping it fresh. That's what this book is all about. That's what the series has been all about with Chris Condon's time on here. I'm loving this book so far. It's one of my favorite superhero books here. Green Arrow number 25. If you read it, let me know your thoughts. And with my top comic of the week, let's talk Assorted Crisis Events number 4, written by Dennis Camp with artwork by Eric Zawadzki. The best thing I can say about this issue is that there is no way, no how that it needed to be part of the Assorted Crisis Events book. This could have lived on its own as a one-shot story. This could have lived on as a graphic novel with an idea that was expanded out and kind of like really developed even further. This could have been its own series that moves forward. It's that strong of a premise. It's that strong of the quality of the story and the writer that makes this book so exciting. This is the absolute best issue of the anthology series that is Assorted Crisis Events so far. And what it really plays with, the idea of this is the crisis that they're dealing with is time not stopping for an individual, and it's kind of just moving forward at a whip snap pace here. He wakes up, he's late for school, he's late for school, he's late for work, he's late for work, he's already in his wedding. It just keeps moving forward on him over and over and over, and it really plays on the idea as an individual gets older. You hear it over and over, man, time flies, god, time just flies by. You have to appreciate every single moment, live every day like it's your last. That's the idea that they're playing with within this issue. And it's really reminiscent of a book that I appreciated back in the day called Day Tripper. Different quality as you see different life events taking place over kind of a multiverse of different actions that you can take place. This is kind of taking a look at a day in the life, which happens to be a life, which is really kind of goes to show all of the different, I don't know, events that can take place in your life and the actions and inactions that you can take, and this character in this book does take or doesn't take, and how they impact the remainder of your days, whether that is your entire life or that day in the moment. It's really fantastically done here. The artwork, again, by Eric Zawadzki, is completely surprising, as I've never seen his work previous to this series, and I'm just so surprised that you can come on the scene and do things that you're doing in this book the way you're doing them in such a magnificent manner. Like it's really really great here. Complemented by that is the colors here by Jordi Belair. They really make this book pop. They're very simplistic, very minimalistic, but when the color usage happens, it goes to show that there's meaning behind it. There is something that is taking place that makes you, it kind of demands your attention. So Assorted Crisis Events, it's meaningful, it's bold, it is something that is going to be resonant with a certain subset of readers here. Specifically, I think of an older age set that kind of can look back at their life and see these events taking place for our main character, albeit in a shortened time span, and really appreciate all of the beats that are happening here. So Assorted Crisis Events was absolutely worthy of Top Comic of the Week. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you read, and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.